Touch versus technology. What defines better care? Touch or technology? There was a time when children went out to feel nature, to touch plants, to touch flowers. Now we give them a 3D experience in their room. There was a time when people used to talk to each other, looking at each other. Dad, I have so much to share about my day at school. Things have changed. Hi, sweetie, how was your school today? You can read all about it on my blog, Dad. We look at devices, not at people. There was a time when kids used to be dragged home into the house from the playground, and the mothers used to struggle. Now they struggle in getting a child to go off his device to go to the playground. Families used to go out for a picnic. Now devices are part of a family outing. More than 51% of the population has access to the internet, and by 2020 there will be 50 billion connected devices. There are 2.1 billion people who swear by Facebook. Arthur Clarke had said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and many of us would agree with that. Whether it's 3 Tesla, MRIs, PET-CT, CyberKnife, Novalis, 620 slice CT, PET MRI, robotics, proton, name it, EMRs, they have redefined the way we deliver care. But deep down inside, we still crave for that touch, that tender touch, that hug. The Dalai Lama said, I think technology has really increased human ability, but technology cannot produce compassion. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the topic for our debate. Touch versus technology. What defines better care? And we have 2 stellar speakers, and let me invite the 2 speakers. Mr. Bhavdeep Singh, he's the CEO of Fortis Healthcare in India, a recognized leader having worked across industries in many countries. Bhavdeep. Dr. Mohamed Hamdy, Group Chief Operating Officer, Al Salama Hospital, UAE. Worked in multiple countries and has been in the UAE for the last couple of years. Mohamed. Bhavdeep is going to touch us with his tender touch. And Mohamed is going to zap us with technology. So let's go through the rules of engagement. Bhavdeep will have 5 minutes, Mohamed will have 5 minutes, then there'll be a rebuttal for 1 minute each. Then we are going to open it up to the audience where you're going to ask questions which are going to be interesting. I hope they're really difficult questions. And then we're going to get Bhavdeep and Mohamed to sum up, and then we're going to have a show of hands to vote on who's won the debate. Does that sound like a lot of fun? Yes? So let's get cracking. Let's put our hands together for Bhavdeep, who's going to speak on why touch is important.
Good morning. Can you all just take out your cell phones? You all have a cell phone with you? Take out your cell phone. You all have your cell phone in your hand? Squeeze it. Squeeze it. Just, does it give you a warm, fuzzy feeling? Do you feel better about yourselves? No? Put your phones down. Look at the person sitting next to you and shake their hand. You can let go now. I see that man in the 8th row. He will not let go of the guy's hand. I'm not really sure what that's about. A little too much touch. It's really that simple, isn't it? You know, the topic here is actually a bit, this isn't a question of or. It's actually a question of and. And then you have to ask yourself, because the topic is fairly generic, right, in terms of technology or touch. But who are we talking to? Who's the stakeholder? Are we talking about the doctor? Are we talking about the nurse? What about the patient? My father is 89 years old. And he had to get an MRI done recently. My father's an educated person, worked in the healthcare system in New York, and he walks with a walker, and we walked into the MRI suite. Very, very sophisticated, the very best MRI in the world. Lots of lights, just from a patient perspective. Because even doctors forget what technology, how it works when they're the patient. Doctors ask, is this going to hurt? So my father walks in, and he's a bit overwhelmed. So he lies down, and he's looking. He says, don't let go of my hand. That's the only thing that mattered to him at that time. In Punjabi, in my language, he says, Hath mera chhodna nahi. Don't let go of my hand. So all the technology, and he knew that he was surrounded by the very best technology. It came down to just holding his hand. Now, if you're a doctor, the technology is what matters. But we just heard a minute ago, we're all going to, in fact, the last 2 sessions talked about the fact that one day we'll all be patients. One day we're all going to die. And that touch element becomes so important. And it's actually in everything in healthcare. I have the good fortune of working with Fortis Healthcare in India. And we received a letter from a patient thanking us. They had a wonderful experience in the hospital. And this patient wrote about a half a page about the nurse, about what wonderful care this nurse took care of her. I was very impressed because I'd heard that we'd gotten this great letter. I was visiting the hospital. And the hospital had said to me, listen, this is Sabina. We received a wonderful letter on her. The patient raved about her. I went to Sabina. I thanked Sabina. I said, I understand we have some wonderful feedback on you. I said, what did you do? What did you do that was so special? She said, the patient likes to play rummy. So every day I'd go play cards with her. We don't have that in our nursing training manual. We don't teach our nurses to play cards. She played cards with the patient. She also, over the course of 24 hours, the nurses checked the temperature, checked the vitals, drew blood, did all the other things. It came down to a deck of cards and gin rummy. That's how the patient defined their experience. So Dr. Sibal getting up the way he did, because he could have zapped me, but he didn't, I'm assuming means my time is up. So on that note, think about the phone and the warm, fuzzy feeling you got, and then the handshake that you did right after that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bhavdeep. And I told you he's going to touch you with his tender touch, so he's got this highly emotional pitch by bringing his father into the picture and the nurse. So please note the stance Bhavdeep has taken. Over to Mohamed, and he is going to talk about technology.
Thank you. Good morning. Of course, I'm not, regarding technology, I'm not so emotional like Dr. Singh, Mr. Singh. And this is my first time to face this good and this big crowd and big audience, so please be on my side. In today's healthcare systems, technology is the foundation of future. I wonder how healthcare modernization is best visualized if we compare ourselves 30 years ago. How we were 30 years ago and where we are today. The need for improvement was the driving force behind the evolution of technology in healthcare. Majority of the past 30 years was spent on computer programming for administrative purposes, while the past decade itself has seen emphasis on the clinical process. The patient care has become a primary focus on the development of new concept and knowledge in healthcare technology. Technological development in clinical application is the current trend in healthcare, and it will continue to play a major role of years to come. Crossover from administration to clinical application started with individual departments that needed to speed up their process in order to provide better care. Some of this began with the radiology department, the pharmacy, and the laboratory. This beginning then began to be adopted in other clinical departments. The stream of information through the increase of technology has transformed the decision-making process for clinicians. It has been observed that patient education has slowly become a major concern, and that hospitals want to get involved in implementing better education and better care for the patients and their families, reducing readmissions rates, decreasing healing time, and improving the mental discomfort of patient and his family, and produce better patient results. At the end, I will not take a lot of time. At the end, technology is inevitable. It helps in cost containment, reducing medical errors, improve the outcome of patient care. I will give you just 3 examples of what we have encountered with technology in HMA this year. The first one was yesterday with Dr. Timothy Liu from Farrer Park. It was the electronic meal ordering system. It's one of the technological development that he did in his hospital, and it's helping the patient to get his suitable food and for him regarding in compare with his clinical data that he was entered by the physician before. And the other one, it was the ensuring efficiency of consistent diagnosis in helping patients recover faster. This was by Dr. Tada from the director of the Institute of Gastroenterology in Japan, and he used the artificial intelligence in the upper GIT endoscopies to diagnose gastric cancers. The last one, but not the least, it was presented from Siemens Healthians yesterday, and it was regarding the first patient positioning system in radiology powered by AI with this fast integrated 3D camera, and their new projects with the avatar-based augmented reality. This is the real-time registration of pre-operative data based on 3D camera and customer and avatar technology. And the last one was the digital twin with multi-scale physiological model, collecting all the patient's physiological model updated with each scan and exam he does in the hospital. Thank you.
So if you'll notice, Mohamed decided to impress everyone's mind with data and AI and examples from augmented reality and evidence. So he didn't go down the emotional pitch at all. So Bhavdeep, how do you want to rebut?
You know, I don't think there's a rebuttal. I think that everything that was said by my esteemed colleague is absolutely right. I think what we have to remember is the role that technology plays. Technology is not the solution. It's an enabler. Right? It still comes down to care. It still comes down to care, and I don't think we should forget that. So I think that everything, I mean, even when you look at, you know, we spent a lot of time looking at Watson a couple of years back. Right? Ultimately, it came down to, what does the patient experience look like? What kind of data do you get? What do you do with the data? So the whole notion of enabler. One last thought I would tell you is that a couple of presentations back, there was a whole discussion. Somebody had mentioned about e-commerce. right? And the fact that e-commerce, and there was a discussion about banking. This analogy was given a few minutes back. The reality is, I've spent a lot of years in retail, so I'm not a lifelong healthcare expert. I've spent a lot of time in consumer-facing goods. The reality is that bricks and mortar retail is coming back. That is the latest data. When you look at even Amazon, which is the biggest retailer in the world, right? Amazon is opening up stores. Amazon's actually now opening up stores. They're investing a tremendous amount of money because the experience that people want to have when they buy something is still paramount. You cannot, at the end of the day, you can only do so much online. You actually eventually want to go talk to someone, touch someone, hold the product, whatever it might be. And when it comes to our industry, when it comes to patients, the notion of touch becomes so critical. Technology is an enabler. It comes back to playing gin and holding hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavdeep. So technology is an enabler, but it eventually comes back to touch. Mohamed.
I think that in technology we have also the augmented reality. This can be a part that we can think about. The augmented reality is involved in several what I can say, several clinical process now. I'm on the side of Dr. Singh and Mr. Singh that we cannot have a totally life full of technology without having the human touch. But at the end, we have to give the patient a good service, a timely service, free of errors, providing better care, reducing the cost, and increasing the efficiency.
So your point is, right, technology, where would you be without technology, and what can touch alone do?
Technology is inevitable.
Right. What can touch do alone? We're going to open this now to the audience. Please, your comments, questions, and if you have any specific person you want to direct them to, please. Could we have the microphone here, Rose, please? To my right, please. And others who want to speak, if you could please identify yourself, and then we're going to have it in the center here. Could we have a microphone down there at the center back, please? Amitabh.
Yeah, hi, I'm Amitabh Saxena. Question is to Bhavdeep ji. See, if I'm a heart patient, I would rather prefer the best of the best technology to treat me rather than a nurse playing rummy with me. I'll be perfectly fine with a nurse who's not great at all in the interaction, but the best of the best technology to treat me. So,
Bhavdeep, this is for you. The question is, if I have a heart problem, I want the best technology, the best nurse holding my hand is good, but if I don't have the technology, I'm perhaps not going to get the best care.
See, I think, so look, I actually agree with you, because the assumption we should all work with is technology will be the equalizer, right? The reality is that whether it's Fortis or Womengrad or Apollo or any place else, we're all actually going to have the technology. Right? The base technology will always be there. You can always go up and up and up and up. The differentiator, that's why I said earlier that it's not about one or the other. It is actually depending on who you are, what role you play, it becomes one plus the other. But without the care, just give me 30 seconds. We always used to say in the retail world that you can have a fantastic experience in the store. You can get every single thing you want to buy. The price can be right. But when you're leaving, if the last person you see doesn't do it well, the entire experience can be ruined. So you can have a great clinical outcome. When I think about all the feedback we get at Fortis, all the feedback we get compliments, we get complaints. If I had to look at complaints and the percent of complaints that are on clinical activity, clinical excellence, clinical performance versus care, it's hands down the feedback is far more on care, because we're all going to provide a level of clinical excellence, and hopefully we'll all have a level technology playing field. So we're actually in agreement. So thank you very much.
Could we have the microphone here, please? Could you just stand up, please? Yeah. Could we have the mic there, please? Rose, could we have the microphone there, please? There, it's coming. There it is. In the meantime, anyone else interested in a comment?
Thank you. It eventually got here.
Could you be a bit louder, please?
Thank you very much. I'm Kaushik from Australia. And the question is possibly for Bhavdeep. We do talk about technology and the rate at which technology is improving. And possibly one of the examples would be self-driven cars. And eventually we know that we'll get to that point where if you want to drive, you will have to pay a significantly higher premium in your insurance because you are now an unsafe driver compared to an automated driver. In that sort of a thought process, do you think the touchy-feely thing is going to be there? I'm not saying it's not going to be important, but would it be the cutting edge? Would it be anything and everything that we want at the end of the day?
So, Bhavdeep, will in the environment that we live in today, where everything's changing, do you think touch will actually be the cutting edge? Could we have a microphone here, please?
I think we have to put ourselves in the shoes of a patient. I think we have to ask ourselves what matters at that time. Because quite honestly, sitting here today, we are in the shoes of an administrator, as a service provider, as a partner who provides technology. The reality is, for all of us that are in this room, if we think about the number of patients, so if there's 500, 600 people here, collectively our organizations serve millions and millions of patients. So quite honestly, at some point you have to ask yourself, technology there is a level where it does become a playing field. Now whether you have a robotic, right, we're testing a orthopedic robot, a Smith & Nephew, to do orthopedic surgeries. And then you have a patient who does it non-robotic. The reality is, what does the patient think? When it's all said and done, our opinion will matter little. Because what are we going to do? Because the same question you're asking me, good question, all of us in our respective organizations will actually go ask our customers. Because more and more, the technology we're designing is actually around care and touch. Because the technology we had 10 years ago wasn't. It was just technology. Look at the iPhone. Think about what your phone was like, your Nokia phone was like 10 years ago, and what your iPhone is today. You don't even have to punch an ID now. Just touch the phone, it opens. Touch.
All right.
Think about it. Technology is coming around. So my opinion actually matters very little. And respectfully, I would say to you that individually, in the shoes that you're asking that question, I'm not sure how much either one of our opinion matters. Because we're going to go back and ask our customers. That's what the iPhones and the Apples and the Googles of the world are doing. They're all moving in that direction. They're actually coming around to touch. So it's one big loop. We started with touch. We went all the way around at technology. And came right back to where we started. Back to touch.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhavdeep. The final comment, please.
Yes, Dr. Surapong, I seem to agree on your last comment. I think myself personally, you cannot leave one behind another. That means it's both important, technology and human touch. Even you have heard of the hospital transformation to be online, to be digital, to be e-commerce, but yet the wording, sentences, and meaning you put in there must be friendly, offering, and also human touch. Even though you don't touch them with your speech, but anything you talk, you offer, online, offline, above line, below the line, must be human touch. So both of them must go together. You cannot compete one to another. You cannot leave one behind another. That's my conclusion. I'd like to hear who see the difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hamdy, Mohammed, do you want to say something? Just to sum up, quick 30 seconds.
I agree with you that both are serving each other, touch and technology, and we cannot substitute the human touch from technology, and also we cannot substitute technology for touch. Yes.
Bhavdeep, any last 30-second
No,
comment?
I agree with you completely. I agree with all of you, because ultimately we're coming to the same thing. Thank you.
Great. So we're going to vote now. So a show of hands. Who all believe technology defines better care? All those who believe that technology defines better care, to actually raise your hands, please. Okay, one last question. Has to be quick.
Thank you very much. I'm from China. It is very interesting that we are talking about touching and technology today, and it reminds me of the wonderful memory that I had when I was a kid. But with the development of society, people really cannot do without technology. For example, when my cell phone has no electricity, we will feel nervous. My heart will beat fast. So I think that in our life, touching and technology can integrate. Touching cannot beat technology. Life in technology needs touching. I will give my daughter a hug after school, but I will continue to do my business with my mobile phone. Thank you. That's my opinion.
Thanks. So thank you for that comment. So all those who believe that technology defines better healthcare, to please raise their hands. It's a show of hands. So all those who believe technology helps deliver better care, right? And all those who believe that touch delivers better healthcare, to raise their hands. Right, so we are all very emotional people here, and we believe that touch is important. Of course, I'd want both of you to keep sitting down for a sec. But before we conclude, I want to tell you a little story. Maureen used to head IHI. Many of you might have heard her, stellar speaker, amazing health leader, and she once told us a story. Her mother was very unwell, and she got a call from the doctor saying that your mom's very unwell, you need to come into hospital. Maureen belongs to a large family, so Maureen was given the responsibility of calling all her siblings. She made all the phone calls, and all the brothers and sisters went to the hospital, and there was a case conference, and there were the doctors looking after her mother and the family, and the intensivist looking after Maureen's mother said, you know, her clinical condition is deteriorating. She's likely to go on to non-invasive ventilation. She'll perhaps need a ventilator. She's getting renal dysfunction. She might need renal support. And while this conversation was happening, the primary physician said, do we know what mom wants? And there was pin drop silence, because no one had actually talked to the patient. No one had talked to Maureen's mom. And Maureen was asked to go and speak with her mom, and Maureen went into the room and asked mom. And mom said, I want to go home. I don't want to be on respiratory support. I don't want renal support. I want to go home and spend time with my children and my grandchildren. So Maureen discussed this with the team, and a decision was made. Maureen's mom was taken home, and she passed on peacefully at home, in her room, in her bed, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, looking at photo albums, talking about the old times. Maureen said that that day I realized that there were two types of doctors looking after my mother. Her intensivist was a fabulous doctor. He knew precisely what to do. He had a plan. He was the doctor of her body. But a primary physician was the doctor of her soul. And as healthcare providers, each one of us needs to be not just the caregiver of the body, but also caregiver of the soul. So we need both technology and touch to be able to do that. Thank you so much.